Hi everyone, it's Jen from Mr. and Mrs. Pose. This is a pose alignment segment looking at standing forward bend, Uttanasana. We're going to look at some of the benefits, the contraindications and variations of this pose. The Sanskrit for standing forward bend, Uttanasana, is usually translated as intense stretch. And from the student point of view, it can be just that. It can be like touching the toes or a flexibility test. But standing forward bend really is so much more. It has physiological benefits. We're using the gravitational pump of the body to bring fresh blood to the head. If you think about it, we're really doing seated forward bend in a standing or vertical position. So we're using gravity to affect the cardiovascular and nervous system. The pose also lengthens and tractions the spine. It opens the whole back body, including hamstrings and calves. It's good for the abdominal organs and is also said to stimulate the kidney, the liver and the pancreas. The benefits in terms of your practice are that it can be a transition pose, but it also can be a pose that we hold for longer periods of time to achieve a certain effect. It can be used in warm-up, it can be used as a resting pose in more vigorous parts of your sequence, or in cool-down to bring the body down, or as a restorative pose. In terms of other benefits, really the pose introduces this idea of bowing, as we see in Salute to the Sun, of respect, humility, and a connection with the earth. Also, it puts our heart over our brain, which is actually a lovely way to go inwards. It's said to relieve stomach pain and also to relieve mild depression and to calm the body and slow the heart rate. So the contraindications for standing forward bend really involve disc injury and osteoporosis. If you do have these conditions, you might want to keep the spine long rather than bending around trying to get to the knees. And move slowly into and out of the pose. This pose might not be the right one for you, so take it very gently. If you have hypertension, high blood pressure, you'll want to avoid long holds and you want to come into the pose quite slowly. If you have hypotension, low blood pressure, you want to come out of the pose slowly, as this can cause dizziness. If you're in late pregnancy and there's just not quite enough room, you can do the half variation at the wall like we did with downward dog last time. In terms of tips for the pose, they really relate to the entry and exit to the pose, so coming into and out of the pose. If you have tight hamstrings, please don't be afraid to bend the knees. Also, another instruction to help release the hamstrings is to firm the front of the thighs, to lift the kneecaps and tighten the front of the thighs. And this can actually allow the hamstrings to open a little bit more. We also find ourselves sometimes sinking into the heels in this pose, so just shift the weight a little bit forward if you catch yourself doing that. And to turn the pose into more of a restorative version, we can actually use blocks, which can take some of that strain out of the head and give some support. So let's take a look, I'll show you now. So, there are two main ways to come into the pose. One is, they're really both to do with the spine. One is articulating the spine, rolling it down very gently, and the other is keeping the spine longer. There's no right or wrong, these are just two different methods. Generally, for most bodies, it's safer to roll down, but for some bodies it might be better to keep the spine long, and for more experienced practitioners, I should say, this can be a great option. So let's take a look. We round the spine, rolling all the way down. And to come up, bend the knees slightly and roll all the way back up again. Now we'll try the other variation, lifting the arms up. We keep the spine long and then begin to fold. To come up, it's almost like that swan dive. And up again. Beautiful. So the other consideration is the placement of the feet in this pose. If you have lower back or sacroiliac issues, you may want to take the feet a little bit wider, but certainly it's a great idea to, even if you can bring the toes together, to keep the heels a little bit apart as well. And this just creates that little bit of extra space. So now let's try it with the blocks to see how we can work with making the pose a little bit more restorative. I prefer to roll down. So once we're down here, we can grab our blocks and you can stack them. Certainly if you're a little bit inflexible in the thighs, you can stack it high and do whatever you need to bring a little bit of support to the head. You can take the blocks to whatever height, or you can come all the way down and maybe bring the hands back. And this is a lovely way to calm the pose. So removing the blocks, coming into the full expression of the pose, we can actually fold the body quite close. We can take the hands behind if that's comfortable. Bring the palms to the, or just relax. Bending the knees to come up. So that's standing forward bend, Uttanasana. Try it for yourself. And please don't forget to subscribe below at mrandmrspose.com to stay in touch. Thank you for watching. Namaste.